Let's discuss what the hell is going on with reform versus restore.
People think, oh, Farage has done it, we'll just set a party up, it'll be marvellous.
Now, yesterday, Nigel Farage held a really big rally to announce his new shadow cabinet for reform, this sparkly new thing that would lead a future government into success. But this would have been another big moment for them if it hadn't been somewhat overshadowed by one Mr. Rupert Lowe. Now, Rupert Lowe interestingly chose Friday the 13th to establish and launch his political party, Restore Britain. And while many have called Reform UK the anti-establishment party that has been a total thorn in the side of the Tory sides for years, let's start with a little background on the man causing this drama. Who is Rupert Lowe? Because apparently only 8% of the British public are aware of who he is. Now, people on Twitter would beg to differ because he has a massive online social presence, nearing 1 million followers, so he's got great influence in the social space. Lowe is a 68-year-old former businessman. He spent his pre-political career largely working in the city of London for a variety of banks and financial institutions. That was sort of his upbringing. He was running and owning his own businesses in his mid-30s across engineering, energy, data, and retirement homes, and he even dabbled in a bit of football here and there. But Lowe also has links to politics. He was a member of the Conservative Party until 1993, but then resigned due to his Eurosceptic views. And 4 years later, he stood in the 1997 election as a referendum party candidate. Lowe didn't win that time around, though, and after the 2016 EU referendum, he actually returned to politics in 2019, and he won a seat as an MEP in the European Parliament on behalf of the Brexit Party. Funny that. The Brexit Party was the predecessor to Reform UK. Now that's clearly where he met Nigel. So he was in the orbit of Nigel Farage for at least 5 years before the 2024 general election. He even stood as a candidate in a by-election in February 2024, but he lost to Labour at that point. However, fast forward to July of that year, the general election where Keir Starmer and Labour, they finally ended that 14 years of Conservative Party rule, though we all know that some of that can be attributed to the rise of Reform and why there was a big vote split on the right of the electorate, with Reform picking up millions of votes and establishing itself with 4 MPs at the time. Despite the split votes, Reform UK had won 4 seats that night. Party leader Nigel Farage won the Clacton electorate. We had Richard Tice, who won Boston and Skegness. Then we had Lee Anderson, who won Ashfield, and Rupert Lowe, who won Great Yarmouth. Now, that's nearly 27 years for Rupert after he first tried to enter Parliament. So this was a very long time coming for him. Now, things were all fine and dandy for a few months. We also had Zia Youssef come into the party as the chairman of Reform around that time. But things took a turn in March 2025, when it was announced that Lowe had been reported to the police over alleged verbal threats made against Reform's new chairman, Zia Youssef. Now, it led Lowe to lose the Reform UK whip, and since then he's been forced to sit as an independent. Now, Lowe denied these claims and called them vexatious. He said it was all in response to criticisms of Farage as a leader. The CPS later said that there was insufficient evidence for his prosecution. And just yesterday, sparking massive internet furore, Nigel Farage said this:
The mass deportation of entire communities, including those born in the United Kingdom, that just moves way beyond a point of reasonableness, of decency, of morality. And that was the moment at which, I realised we just had to get rid of him, and get rid of him as quickly as we could. And I think in terms of the way we dealt with that, we were probably more brutal than the other parties. But you know what? That's the way it's going to be. Thank you.
Since going out on his own, Lowe has honed his focus on one of Reform's key issues, immigration. He doesn't think Reform or Farage are going far enough in their pledges to curb illegal immigration, and essentially says that he wants people to re-migrate out of Britain. Lowe is a big proponent of Christian values. He's been a very outspoken critic of Muslim and Islamic practices such as cousin marriage, kosher and halal slaughter, and he's been a very big supporter of the grooming gang's victims. In the last few weeks, he was holding his very highly publicized grooming gang's inquiry as the government's official inquiry struggled to gain traction. Here are some comments he's made in the past about his views.
I think the state has become the enemy of the people. It's basically supposed to be serving us, but it's become omnipotent. It's become far too big.
So this leads us to June 2025. Lowe set up Restore Britain purely as a political movement. Now, Ben Habib said that they were planning to launch a party together, but last minute, Rupert decided to go his own way, do a political movement within Restore Britain, and Ben Habib went and launched Advance UK as another political party. Restore Britain operated around similar edicts to what Reform UK was also offering, curbing illegal and legal migration, defunding the BBC, benefits for Britons only, and abolishing postal voting. It was only last week that Lowe established Restore Britain as a national political party. In announcing the party, Restore Britain said it was a party for those who believed the nation had been hollowed out by weak leadership, broken institutions, and a political class that no longer serves the people. Similar to Reform, Restore Britain is targeting local elections. Lowe's party is set to be an umbrella party supporting local-led parties, with a first focus being the electorate of Great Yarmouth and the Great Yarmouth First Party. Since announcing the party's official rise, Lowe has picked up a number of councillors, including 7 from the Kent County Council, 6 of them Reform members expelled by the party previously. Reform, as we know, has made a very big deal in the past about councillors defecting to their party, although they've called the 6 former members dregs. Lowe has also picked up quite high-profile support from billionaire Elon Musk. Musk even writing on X in January 2025 that Lowe should replace Farage as Reform's leader. This was just months after Farage was spotted at Trump's inauguration, hand in hand with Musk. On Saturday, Musk tweeted, "Join Rupert Lowe in Restore Britain, because he's the only one who will actually do it." So what does this all mean for Reform UK? Well, Nigel Farage and co have been sitting quite comfortably at the top of the polls for some time now. They regularly come in first in national polling, ahead of the traditional powerhouses of the Conservatives and of Labour. But Reform has earned criticisms from those anti-establishment voters on just how many former Tories Farage has welcomed into the front benches. They argue, how can people who broke Britain help repair it for the next generation? Here's what Restore Britain campaign director Charlie Downs said on Talk on Monday night about the difference between the parties.
I think viewers at home will understand what it is that I'm getting at when I say that there is a difference between somebody who has come here in the last 5 years and got themselves a British passport, got themselves a indefinite leave to remain or a British passport, and somebody whose family has been here for 1,000 years. Because what we're talking about there is the polity that we are seeking to represent and act in favour of when we engage in the political process. Because if you don't know who it is that you're seeking to represent and defend the interests of, then you can't engage in political activity. So please let me finish, Alex. Come on. So Reform do not have a clear idea of who the British people are. Their only definition that they have stuck with since they launched, as I've already said, Tice, Farage, all of them have said this, is the same as what Blair defined the British people as what Cameron defined them as, what Gove defined them as, which is British values.
As anti-immigration sentiment grows, impacting basically all parties vying for number 10, there are many who want stronger sentiment around protecting Britain's borders, and for many, protecting British values. For 2 years, up until now, Reform has been that party, which has been betting on voters dissatisfied with the main parties to get them into government. The launch of his own shadow cabinet reaffirmed that Farage sees himself as the true leader of the opposition. A shadow prime minister, if you will. But Restore Britain poses an alternative for those not satisfied with Reform's stance. Rupert Lowe has said that the 50,000 members that have already signed up are putting the party ahead of the Liberal Democrats. And Lowe has a very strong social media presence, as discussed before, with 645,000 followers on X. And that's led to a very vocal group of supporters online who are advocating for his policies. How has Reform reacted to this? Nigel Farage seemed pretty rattled by this recent news. Let's have a look at what he said in response to it.
You know, people think, oh, Farage has done it. We'll just set a party up. It'll be marvellous. We'll sweep the next election. It just isn't as easy as that. Now, does he have a profile on X? Yes, he does. Is Elon going to support him? Probably.
For 2 years now, Farage has been the one challenging traditional politics in the UK. Now he has his own challenger, arguing that he's the real answer to Britain's policies. And it adds another party on the right for the electorate to choose between, running the risk of usurping Reform and the Tories entirely, or further dividing the vote. For Nigel, this is a staunch warning to what happens when you do create enemies within your own party after lifting them up. It remains to be seen if Farage's former party colleague will just be another sort of failed political startup or a new force that will keep Reform out of number 10.